Let me ask this question. Rob, can you pull up the one clip on CNN where this guy is explaining men competing in women's sports? For me, I think one of the things, based on this was prompted based on what you guys are saying right now. One of the things is how terrible the argument of the left was for the last specifically 4 years. It's been bad for 8 years, but 4 years was a little bit ridiculous. So I'm watching this thing here. I'm like, okay, CNN, they're having a conversation about who to blame. And this guy is making a very, very logical. Last night, I'm at training with my son in the soccer. It's 9 o'clock. I'm there with the two trainers. One guy comes up who's a agent. He's here from London. And another guy who's a guy that played for Miami and Inter Miami, and he's not somewhere else. We're standing there talking. Guy comes up to me. He's on the tennis field. He says, I know this voice. I said, yeah. He says, you're Patrick. I said, I am. He says, I watch you all the time. I said, that's great. He says, I don't agree with you. I said, really? Yeah. I said, tell me who you voted for. He said, I voted for Kamala. I said, really? Tell me why you voted for Kamala. He says, well, I just think Trump, he's just like, he's got the TDS. And I'm like, okay, fine. But when it came to family, he's talking to me with his 3-year-old son on his shoulder. And in this argument right here, you lose that guy. Where that guy sits there and says, I don't agree with this guy. Rob, can you go ahead and play this clip?
The families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys.
But watch what he says. Watch what she says to him.
I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second because, look, this is a really heated issue, right? And Michael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this.
So what?
I think out of respect for Jay,
out of respect
let's
to what?
try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
What do you mean?
So let me rephrase this since I'm being targeted here.
I don't. You're not. Just to be clear, you are not being targeted.
Of course he is.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
He should know that I'm not intending.
I'm not calling you transphobic. I'm saying you're using a phrase
I want to give you an opportunity.
So the way regular people interpret it,
that's not regular people. That's not regular people. There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of the population.
That may be the
and we're
case,
using
but
that
my point in terms of its effectiveness.
Just get to your point.
My point in terms of its effectiveness. Regular people with children look at these things and they say, you know what, this is a bit too far. I do not agree with this. I don't like this. I think Democrats are going way too much to the left on social issues.
As exhibited by the interjection from Jay Michelson.
A lot of families believe that. You may disagree with that reality, but that's why Republicans kept running those ads over and over and over again.
Says.
Because they saw the metrics suggested that they were working.
In those ads over and over again
About
and
what?
using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls sports.
It is.
First of all, we're talking about
people in the entire country. So, Charlie, you've not seen it, so
no, that's
raw
remarkable.
reaction. Go ahead.
I mean, but rarely are you able to then see the contention and the point proved in one clip. So Michael is saying, one of the reasons why Democrats are failing is because boys are in women's sports. And the guy then says, no, you have to stop doing that. He was doing real-time speech police, real-time thought interruption of a very valid point, by the way, that Michael is making. And yes, let's just be very legitimate here. There are men in female sports. Just ask Riley Gaines. It is happening every single day. It's happening at the biggest possible level. It's happening even at the Olympics. It's happening all across the board. And it is something that Donald Trump's most effective political advertisement this cycle, and Susie Wiles deserves such credit for this and her entire team because they trust their instinct. It was a two-sequence ad. They did A and B. The first one is where they showed Kamala Harris sitting down with a trans activist in California where she was bragging that illegals got taxpayer-funded gender reassignment surgery. I mean, just like and bragging about it.
Yep.
Then they ran another ad of Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club reacting to that and basically saying, Kamala Harris is for they, them, Donald Trump is for you. And they went all in on that ad. Now, what is it about that ad? Of all the stuff.
I saw that on the Yankees game. I saw it on the playoffs game. It was everywhere.
But hold on a second. I got to disagree a little bit with Bill O'Reilly here, based on what you said. It wasn't just groceries and gas, because the Trump campaign spent $75 million on a non-grocery and gas, because that ad struck down to a chord that was Kamala Harris's weakness. She is this radical ideologue from California who will pander to foreigners, not Americans, with the most wild, abstract left-wing ideas, and then incorporated in that, oh, by the way, she's also for they, them. So anyone who's dealing with that kind of HR policing in the corporate life, it's kind of a little trigger. And they even said in the ad that Kamala supports men and female sports. I mean, it hit all the points in 30 seconds. And what did you just say, PBD? Where did they place that ad? The brilliance of the Trump campaign. They only ran it on NFL football and the World Series and male-dominated media. They didn't run that on Lifetime. And that's why Donald Trump did historically well with young male voters.
Yeah, look, this is a complex situation. It resonates easily. Having a black guy say it, Charlemagne the God was a force multiplier in that regard as well. But look, the Democrats lost because they underperformed. All right, that is a really important thing to remember, because what does that tell you? It tells you they didn't get their people out. When you look at where Trump grew, he grew obviously with people who didn't vote for him before. So something changed in this election that made people stay home, and some of them who did go out went out for him. I think the economics are a big part of that.
Of course. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that's an example.
Yeah,
that it's
this
not
is
a complete picture, though.
Here's my problem with this issue, and I welcome this. I say all the time, you're not going to get a lot of parents to vote for you when you say it's okay that a guy my size is playing girls volleyball in high school. They don't like the idea. Okay. Does it happen a lot? No. Does it happen? Yes, obviously. We're talking about it. I am worried, though, that there is an offset on the issue, which is what happens most with the LGBTQ plus community.
You forgot IA.
IA. I have a problem with that. I get yelled at for this all the time.
And Two-Spirit.
Whatever it is, okay, I'm okay with all of it.
You got to get the whole thing.
I know, because I get yelled at when I don't, but I'm not missing it on purpose, okay? My point is this. What happens to them most...
It's so totalitarian.
Well,
it is, because if you miss the acronym, you're a hater.
That's right. That's a mistake. But two things can be true at once. What happens to that community most is that they're discriminated against. And I'm worried about the gay kid, the trans kid that is living in a real profound state of fear, and people are hurting them. That happens a lot. Now, is the correction...
What are you talking about, Chris?
Listen, people target those people. And they get bullied, they get beat up.
Christians too. People get bullied because they're fat and overweight, or they talk funny.
True, but they more with these kids. And I'm just worried about what you do to them. I agree with the argument. Males and female sport doesn't make any sense.
But in this context, Chris, it's only trans. He's not talking about gay or lesbian.
I know.
This 2-minute video, the guy is saying, when you start putting men competing in women's sports, the guy comes out, Jay, corrects him, saying you can't have transphobia.
Don't call them boys.
Yeah, don't call them boys. These are trans girls. And then, to top it off, the host defends this argument and then tells him to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" So to me, what happens here is the following. What percentage of CNN viewership is going to be Democrat? Let's say 80%, 70%, whatever the number is.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the 40s, but it's okay. It's gonna be a plurality. It's not a majority.
I think it's going to be more liberals than Republicans that watch.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people watch it at the airport.
They calculate it that way. So
There's
take
still
that
people,
out.
By the way.
But watch this. I'm
saying it brings up the average.
But meaning the audience that goes to CNN is that audience, right?
Yeah.
You know what happens? How many of the guys that are sitting there saying, "Bro, I've been voting Democrat my entire life. What the? I don't agree with this."
Yeah.
And imagine a moment where you're sitting there, you and your wife are in the kitchen. Honey, food's ready. Okay, babe. And you're sitting there, so how was your date today? And then you hear this guy.
Yeah, I get it.
And then you're watching like.
I get it. I've never heard anybody make a different case. I've never heard anybody say to me why it's okay that you would have a male be competing against females. I totally get it.
If they continue this way, though, Chris, if they continue this way, the argument when you're presenting and the method of you trying to gain the voters, when you do things like that, you lose in a major way, which, by the way, this is the commercial Charlie was talking about. Rob, if you want to play the clip.
Yeah, just to be clear, they went all in on this ad.
$75 million bucks.
And I have a thought afterwards.
Go ahead, Rob.
Support taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Ad.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Now, can I say something, though? There has been this consensus by some that the culture war should be away from politics and the culture war loses elections. This advertisement, as studied now by 3 different firms as the most effective ad, is against that theory, which is that the culture war actually gave Donald Trump the edge. Now, Chris, I'll also say that ad probably was also why some young black men stayed at home.
Maybe.
Right? Because the Trump campaign deserves credit for at least saying, communicating to the audience, look, Kamala's not worthy of your vote. And it really dampened down enthusiasm. How many young black men in Detroit were excited to go vote for Kamala if they feel as if she wants to go put men in female sports? You see what I'm saying?
I totally get it. And that is a rule of politics. I believe culture wars have always been part of politics. And so the idea that it's separate and apart, I don't agree that it ever was, but it certainly isn't now.
But can it be effective? I think it can be.
100%. I mean, look, he doesn't win without it. I mean, in this race, the economics mattered as well. In 2016, he was a purely cultural proposition, and it worked. So there, empirically, we're on the same side with this. Look, here's my concern with here's why I don't like this, okay? I'll put it that way. I totally agree with the premise, okay? And I think that the manifestations of it that they were putting out there are even more effective than the sports one. That everybody gets access to a sex change in prison, that even illegal migrants get access. That bothers your sense of rightness, okay?
Of justice.
No, of justice, of fairness under law. To me, those are more powerful than the guys my size playing high school, or that guy was like twice my size, that was in the commercial, playing with girls. Why? Because that doesn't happen that much. The other two
but hold
will.
On, Chris, it happens more than you think, but even if it only happens a little, it's an affront to our sense of justice
as
well. Right? I mean, because...
Yeah, I get it.
And it is a tactic used by some, not you. Oh, it's not happening that much. But hold on. When an injustice occurs at the highest, for example, the NCAA swimming championship. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't take many.
It doesn't take, or at the Olympics, or right now, the story that was cooking before the election, the San Jose State volleyball team,
right.
All these teams are forfeiting. I mean, that is at the highest levels of the NCAA. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we don't know to the exact rapidity that it is happening, but even if it happens once at an NCAA championship level.
I get it. Now, where I had more of a problem with this is the immigrant crime issue, because to me, like on this one I get because it's a value play. On the immigrant crime thing, I was like, hey, you don't have to make boogeymen out of them. There are people already very wary of them. Our crime problem in this country is not immigrant motivated, illegal immigrant motivated. I don't think you have to exaggerate things. The truth is often enough. The southern border is a nightmare. The Democrats allowed it to stay that way and actually exacerbated the problem. That's enough. My complaint with Trump was you don't have to demonize the people who are coming over here. The truth is enough for you.
But would you acknowledge that them coming over, they committed a crime?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so then they're criminals.
By definition, I know, but
they're definitionally criminals.
I know, but that's juicing the statistic. He's talking about raping, murdering, those crimes.
We can get to that, but there is something to be said that if I just like show up in your living room uninvited.
It's absolutely wrong. Unless somebody is chasing you across the border with a gun. Your life is in jeopardy. Otherwise, it's a crime.
You know that's not happening, right?
It's a crime. It's almost always economic. And it is always a crime to enter illegally. No question about it. What you do about it is what we should be talking about. Not here, but I mean, we should be talking about what do you do, how are you going to do it, and getting it done.
Fair or unfair in politics, certain stories and narratives will end up defining a race. With George H.W. Bush in 1988, it was the Willie Horton ad against Dukakis. Donald Trump, to a lesser extent, had stories like Laken Riley, who was brutally murdered in Athens, Georgia, or Rachel Morin, who was hunted down in a hiking trail by an illegal alien, a mother of, I think, of four kids. And so, like, those stories aren't misrepresentations. They're real things that happened. And again, what is the vibe? Because Kamala's talking about vibes a lot that Trump played into, is that you guys are not doing well, and for whatever reason, we're allowing all these people in an unregulated fashion.
Right.
And again, what does it get back to? This was Trump's brilliance. That ad, the immigration question, it's an affront to our instinctive, God-built, programmed attunement of justice, of right or wrong. People say that's not right.
When you can find an issue where it's hard for people to disagree with the position, you're in a very good space. You know, and immigration, you know, it's been on poll preferences before, but it's never been like a main thing the way it has the last couple of cycles. And I think that has been a huge differentiator that has been beneficial to the right/Trump, which is really that far left explanation of open borders. You know, it's very hard to find a Democrat who's in power, who's in favor of an open border. But the perception that, well, Trump had this set of rules. You came in and you got rid of all of them because they were his, and you did nothing to replace it to deal with the problem, and it all got worse on your watch. It's really hard with anybody to disagree with that. It's demonstrably true. And then the issue, because it's politics and it was made into a powerful narrative, became really important to everybody. And everybody, Governor,
what state?
Texas Governor Abbott.
Yeah.
You got to put him on your list. And I should have thought of him. Him sending illegal migrants to other states was a genius political move. You can talk about the humanity of it, but because now it made these other populations. Look at New York City. We never talked about that before.
For the record, it wasn't just because of Abbott. Joe Biden and the DHS also, they do flights out from the ports of entry, right? So it wasn't just red state governors.
Right, but he did it with an intentionality.
Yeah, there was some political,
and DeSantis
there
too.
was some political
smart.
theatrics to it.
However,
smart. The policy of the Department of Homeland Security is that you go to a port of entry and we will give you a flight to 30 cities of your choosing.
Yeah,
and so it did nationalize the immigration question.
And I agree with both. And look, catch and release is another one of those things that it is hard to be in favor of as a principle. So what, you're going to catch somebody doing something wrong and you're going to let them go and hope they come back and probably get kicked out of the country.
So can I ask you a question, Chris? Why do you think the Democrats had such a passive border for the last 4 years? If it's so insane, why do you think that is?
Several reasons, okay? One, because solving that problem is not as useful to them until now as weaponizing the problem. And I believe that about both sides. That it allowed Democrats to say, boy, do you people hate people. You are anti-American. You don't even love immigrants anymore. You toxic whiteys. And it allowed the right to say, you people are crazy. You do not use your brain. There is nothing good about what's pouring over the border. And I really believe that's a big motivator and why neither side, Obama had both houses, did healthcare, didn't do this. Nobody has, when they've had the chance, has tried to do this except late in the game this last cycle, which everybody saw through. Second reason, they do have a left flank issue. They do have a left flank issue that is hyper sympathetic to the suffrage of those people and believe that you should just be welcoming all in. That's what this country is. That's what it is. It's best. The main reason, though, was in politics, what they call paralysis by analysis. So the numbers start going bad. They know in Biden administration, it's because they relaxed those home country agreements and the other executive orders. Now the problem is theirs. So what you do in politics 9 times out of 10 is ignore it and focus on something else instead of owning and fixing, because owning gets you owned.
I mean, but if you know that 10,000 people a day are coming into your country and you ignore it, how is that not treason?
It's not treason.
No, but just let's look at it analytically, non-politically. You allow 10,000 people to come in and you just ignore it. How are you not fulfilling your obligation to the country?
Well, you could argue that it is mis or even malfeasance. Treason, no. Treason is a defined crime where you're giving comfort to an enemy. You're assuming that all of these people are therefore enemies, which they aren't.
The cartels are enemies.
Well, but they're not all cartel people.
But enough are to...
Not to be treason. But it's definitely political malpractice. It was definitely wrong. And the cartels, I think, are a great emphasizer of that point. And fentanyl, which got very little attention.
But again, I don't want to dwell too much on the treason thing. I'm not grilling you. I'm just trying to understand because you talk to Democrats a lot, and you know many.
And I'm
of them.
okay being grilled, by the way.
No, I have my own speculation of which is nothing but that. How you can say that you're governing a country and you're spending all this money on Ukraine and all this stuff on abstractions, and you just are kind of, at best, indifferent to your own nation being overrun.
You know what? If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.